Hello. Is Yahweh the dragon who deceives all? My stance is yes, but I'm the one that did this research, so it's like, you know, I've already seen all of it. But I don't expect anybody to take my word for it. Whatever I say, study it out, and then you'll have to decide for yourself. That's what I always tell people because I'm human. I wanted to touch on this a little bit. It's kind of hard to see, but this is Luke 23:29. And what we have in there is, for behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck. I break everything down word by word. I go look at the etymology. I look at ancient Greek dictionaries to see what they say, and I look at old lexicons, you name it, and I put it in about. Well, I used to put it in 4 translators. Now I have 6 that I'm putting it in to see what they spit out. And I kept getting these oddball things on there, and I was like, what is wrong with this verse? Because usually if I see a lot of weirdness coming up, there's something really bad wrong with the verse. So I went back and analyzed it word for word. What I got was, and this is going to blow people's minds. Behold, since the days are coming in which one betroths an AI, Makara, which is a daughter of Hades, the sterile and lower from the sterile and lower region, Ai, which are not born, and their breasts do not give suck. And I thought, okay, this is wild. So I went to a 10th AD lexicon that's real popular and looked it up. And Makara is death, the daughter of Hades. And had a private go to blessedness instead of misery or utter destruction. Go to blessedness is said euphemism. Even the dead are called the blessed ones. But Amakra actually way back then was a daughter of Hades. And then you think, well, how can that be? They got AI translated as thee twice. Well, there's other places that AI is not translated. And they say it's because they didn't have an English equivalent or they didn't know how it fit in the sentence. And this is one of those verses right here. Matthew 24:22. This verse is about, unless those days are cut short, no flesh would survive. We all know that verse. Well, when you can see right here, under AI both times, it's just blank. There's nothing there. They did not translate it. Okay, so I go down here and I throw it into all this stuff that I do. And the English we have says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. What I got when I looked at it in Greek, and this is looking in the modern and the ancient Greek, and except the AI days are truncated or mutilated, there would be no intact flesh be saved. But because of the selected or chosen ones, those AI days are mutilated or truncated. And I thought, truncated? I had to go look that up because I'm not a computer person, but that's a computer term. It's like terminated. And the flesh in that sentence, sarnix, literally means natural physical origin. Now, why would it be termed to be natural physical origin? Born of natural generation, not abnormal. So this is some of the reasons why when people ask me, is it all completed in 70 AD? I just have to say no. I don't think it's all over with yet. There's just too much evidence in there that it's not. But we're going to continue on looking at how Yahweh is the dragon in Revelation, how he compares and stacks up. What I did was, and for those that are new, I took 40 points and I tried to see if Yahweh fit those 40 things from Revelation to see if he was the dragon or not. And every one of them was a positive. Yes, it fit. But I'll show you how they fit. Like I compare the verses. Okay, we were on 31, so we're going to start on 32. Both the dragon and Yahweh, no one can fight them or stand against them. We hear in Revelation 13:4. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? And who can fight against it? Well, we see this over and over in the Old Testament in 2 Chronicles 26. And they said, O Lord God of our fathers, are you not the God in heaven? Did you not rule over the kingdoms of the nations? Power and might are in your hand. There's no one able to take a stand against you. Malachi 3 1 and 2. Behold, I send my messengers, and he will prepare the way before them. And the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come into his temple, and the messenger of the covenant in whom you delight, behold, he is coming, says the Lord of hosts. But who can endure the days of his coming? Who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. Okay, fuller's soap. I found out what a fuller is. A fuller is a laundromat. I had to look that one up. The other verse I got was, the Lord is jealous and avenging God, and the Lord is avenging and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries and keeps wrath over his enemies. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can endure his heat of his anger? His wrath is poured out like fire, and the rocks are broken into pieces by him. So both of them, yeah, they have verses where it says who can stand against them. Do both the dragon and Yahweh use pharmakia as a form of deception? Yep, they do. And for those that don't know, pharmakia is said to be, by Thayer's dictionary, the use or administration of drugs. And Muntz says it's the employment of drugs for any purpose. And we have, they neither repented of their murders, nor their sorceries, nor their fornication, nor their thefts. For sorceries is pharmakia. And the light of the candle shall shine no more in all of thee. The voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more in all thee. For the merchants were the great men of the earth. For by their sorceries or pharmakia were all the nations deceived. So they're literally saying that the pharmakia, or the employment of drugs, was the reason for the nations being deceived. Now, we think of, does Yahweh use that? Well, when we look at Isaiah 47, 7 through 11, and he said, I shall be the princess forever. Thou didst not perceive these things in thine heart. Thou didst not remember the later end. And now hear these words, thou luxurious ones, who art the ones that sit at ease, that is secure, that say in their heart, I am, and there is no other, and I shall sit a widow, neither shall I know bereavement. So they're bragging that they're not going to be a widow, they're not going to sit unsecure. And then in verse 9 he says, but now these two things shall come upon thee suddenly, in one day. The loss of children, widowhood, shall come suddenly upon thee, for thy sorcery, or thy pharmakia in Greek, for the strength of thine enchantments, for thy trusting in wickedness, for thou said, I am, and there is not another. Know thou and understand these things, that thy harlotry shall be thy shame. And they said in their heart, I am, and there is no other. And destruction shall come upon thee, and thou shalt not be aware. There shall be a pit, and thou shalt fall into it. And grief shall come upon thee, and thou shalt not be able to be cleared. And destruction shall suddenly come upon thee, and thou shalt not know. It's like you're not going to even know about it, but it's going to happen to you. I thought that was interesting, though. We have another area where it's also about pharmakia, which I didn't expect to find, but in 1 Chronicles 21:1, Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. Well, the word for number in Hebrew is also dose, like in dose with a medication. And if I didn't do all these checks, like looking at the modern, the ancient, all these different dictionaries, I would have never known that. 2 Samuel, well, you think, well, that's Satan. But in 2 Samuel 24:1, we have the same account, and it says Yahweh. It says, and again, the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Israel, and he was incited David to number or dose Israel and Judah. So you have it in one text saying it was Satan, and in the other text saying it was Yahweh that did it. So what does this mean for us today? It's very interesting because we have Anthony Stephen Fauci, which his name means praiseworthy crown of the sickle. And his mother's name was Eugenia Abbes, which means the gene from the abyss. When we look at Revelation 18:23, and the light of the lamp will shine no more in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride will be heard no more. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth. All the nations were deceived by your pharmakia. It kind of smacks home in a little bit. But then Revelation 14:4, one like a son of man, not the son of man, but one like a son of man. He had a golden crown, a corona in Latin, on his head, and a sharp sickle. And Fauci's family name means sickle in his hand. And we have him quoted in Science as saying, I'm going to keep pushing. It's like he's going to keep doing this, no matter what. Now, I don't know what's going to come of this now, but I think it's pretty interesting. Here's the Revelation 14:4, and I looked and beheld a white cloud, or Nephilim. And seated on the cloud of the Nephilim was one like a son of man. This is the actual verse. And a golden crown was on his head, and a sharp sickle was in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, calling with a loud voice, who sat on the cloud, put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap is come, and for the harvest of the earth is fully ripe. So he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle across the earth, and the earth was reaped. Okay, Nephilim, interesting enough, is what we have named for the NIH microbe analysis engine, which brings together the data on the cloud computing environment, all the information about everybody and their jabs they got. And Nephilim is, that they named this, is the same word for cloud. And we have a cloud computer system. I mean, this is a pretty extreme stuff. Nephilim is the microbe analysis engine, which brings together the microbe data and analysis tools in the cloud computing environment. It offers robust multi-step microbe analysis pipelines with no setup time or cost. It's to address major challenging facing research today, namely analyzing, transferring, and storing biomedical big data. It's a place where they store all the data about everybody. We'll show you this, though. This site just went bye-bye after I made this card and posted it on Facebook. It said, and I saw the beast Therion is his name in Greek, and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered to make war against him, who was sitting on the horse and against his armies. Well, it's very interesting that this is the name that they chose for that. Can y'all see that? Because I don't want to say it on here because it'll get me a strike. It's interesting that they chose the name Therion. And I don't know if they're recreating this stuff. Are they using this as an algorithm? And it already happened. Because if I put it in ancient Greek, you can see that a lot of this was carried out during the 1st century. But when I put it in modern, it's happening today. So, and there is a verse in there that says, and I found it, it's in Luke. I wish I'd have wrote that down tonight before I did this, but I forgot. But it does say, don't think I will not forgive you. And he's specifically talking about this thing right here. And that was Jesus that said it. So do not think if you have been one of those that did that you are not forgiven, because you are. That worried me, because I got family members that did. As deep as I dig, I went looking to see if there was any forgiveness for this, and there is. It's real interesting, though, when you look at the message that's been sent to us mentally. When you look at the buildings and stuff, just look at that. And compare what it looks like in the middle. Very, very similar. It's like the whole planet has moved into some kind of pharmakia beast system. I'll show you this real quick, too, since I've gone this far. You see these formulas here? And this verse over here, this is 13:16. And he makes every or all of their small, and their adult, and their rich and they're poor and they're free and they're slaves. Fiber dosing, they, the notch on the right chirality of them, okay, on the H in Greek, and the fronts of them, okay. I was like, I was a science buff, and he's literally, you could write that you know what, by that verse, literally, the formula, because it attaches on the fronts of the H's in this notch right here on the right. See the little hexagons all together? It look like a honeycomb. It attaches to the H right there, is where that thing attaches to people. You could write it from that verse. It blew my mind. And it's like a fiber thing. It's a weave. They explain that. The graphene-based fiber attaches on that notch. They show the notch, and then they show on the H where it attaches, exactly like the verse. Now, that's reading it in modern Greek. That's not reading it in ancient. And they say, oh, leave modern out of it. That's why they're telling people to leave modern out of it. They don't want people to know this, I think. And what is chirality? Chirality, right? Chirality is how medications attach to the DNA tree. And they attach to the H molecule on the DNA. And I think this is what Paul meant when he said everybody would be grafted in. I think they've already been grafted in. And y'all be leery of this little thing right there. I ain't going to say what it is. You can see the picture. Because it's described as a stamp. Looks an awful lot like a stamp to me. So just be leery of that. You're pushing it real hard. It's like, get an extra bargain in your supermarket if you use your phone to scan that. Why are they doing that? Why are they pushing that specific thing? And in Luke 22:40, and being at the place, he said of them, pray to not enter into the test. Well, in Greek, that word is experiment, a putting to the proof of experiment. Experience their solicitation. That just blew my mind. Yes, they do. They'll tell you they don't, but they do. That's an actual box. When you see WI38, that's human diploid cells. You say HEK293, that's human embryonic kidney cells. They put them in there like initials. I was an RN for 17 years. So, and I did not know this at the time when I was nursing. That's how well this is covered up. There's so much more in the Old Testament too I could go over, but on here I just wouldn't have the time to do it all. It's a lot. And this is interesting too. This is Revelation 8:7. It says, the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Well, hail is chazaz, and fire is lightning, is pur in Greek, and it was mingled with blood. Okay, when you make a jab, you use that little white part on the egg that you probably saw your mama take that white part and separate it out and get rid of that little white little tag looking thing on the egg. Well, that's something they were told when they were kids. You're not supposed to eat that part. But that's what they use to make the binders for the stuff that makes it go through your body. So in its exact process that they're talking about up there in Revelation 8:7, when you put it in modern Greek. And they put the luciferase in it, and it's like something that holds it slippery, makes it go through your body. They use that part of the egg to do it with. And the HEK293 cells were isolated from a human embryonic kidney in 1973. The sample was taken from a legal abortion in the Netherlands. The genes were inserted in the cell, and they made them immortal, they said, meaning they were able to divide forever and keep procreating themselves. And so therefore they can use them over and over and over again. They call these cells Hela cells. Well, Hela is the goddess of the underworld. in Greek mythology. And the word for giants in the Old Testament, where it says the sons of God just came down and mated with the women and they were giants. Well, the Nephilim word means also in modern Hebrew, it means aborting ones or abortionist. It's like it has a dual meaning. I just find it very amazing that they use that. And that's what they named the cells they're using from an aborted fetus. There was another place in here in the Old Testament too. Exodus 8:6. Aaron stretched out his hand upon the waters of Egypt, and he led the frogs, and was brought up in frogs and covered them at the land of Egypt. And likewise also the enchanters of Egypt with their pharmakia. They led the frogs also in the land of Egypt. So it's literally talking about the same word in Greek, the pharmakia stuff. And they're literally making right now living robots made from frog stem cells in science. That was in an article January 21st of 2020. Xenobots, they call them, at the University of Vermont. Supercomputer was used to create possible configuration of frog stem cells. Experiment conducted at Tufts University where the cells were collected and separated to develop specialized cells. Biologists then manually shaped the modified cells into clumps and matched them with a computer design. Various remodels of the organism were conducted to explore the different functions and capabilities of cell groups. So they were taking frog cells and turning stem cells from frogs and turning them into robotic. Part biology, part robot. This is where I found that about David and the dozen. It's a dictionary that I use. Morphix and a place called Do It Hebrew. But it also means number or dose, either one. And you have to watch these little jokers now, because the little Q-tip things. Because Johns Hopkins researchers have developed a tiny shaped changing machines that deliver medicine into the GI tract on the tip of a Q-tip. So be careful of that. Just FYI. That's from an article in 11/2020 from Johns Hopkins Research. We'll continue on. I hope that doesn't get me a strike, but y'all need to know about this stuff. Both the dragon and Yahweh caused the rivers to turn to blood. It says in Revelation 16:4, the third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard an angel charged of the water say, Just are you, O Holy One, who is and who was, for you have brought your judgments, for they have shed the blood of the saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink. It's what they deserved. Well, when we look at Exodus and Psalms, we can see the same thing. It's like Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of the serpent, he will lift up his staff and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water in the Nile turned to blood. So their drinking water turned to blood. And the fish in the Nile unalived, and the Nile stank. And the Egyptians could not drink the water from the Nile, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And it even says that in Psalm 78:44 that they couldn't drink it because it turned to blood. It says, he turned their rivers to blood, so they could not drink of their own streams. Both the dragon and Yahweh have lightning. That's pretty simple, because Jesus told us in Luke 10:18, and he said, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And Matthew 28:2, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and an angel of the Lord descended upon the heaven, came and rolled back like a stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. So we can imagine when that happened. Then we see this in Psalms 97:1-4. The Lord reigns, let the earth rejoice, and let the multitude of the islands be glad. Clouds and darkness all around him. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. A fire goes out before him and burns up his adversaries on every side. His lightning lights up the world. The earth sees and trembles. So Yahweh's lightning lights up the earth. The sound of your thunder was in the whirlwind, and the lightning lit up the world, and the earth shook and quaked. So Yahweh is definitely likened to lightning. Both the dragon and Yahweh have temples with people dressed in fine linen. We see that in Revelation 17:3, and he carried me away in spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting in a scarlet beast, and was full of blasphemous names. It had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and impurities of her sexual immorality. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of ivy, all kinds of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble. Now, when we look at Exodus, we see in 28:5, they shall take the gold and the blue and the purple and the scarlet and the fine linen, and they shall make an ephod of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen, and work the work of skillful workmen. Breastplates also in Genesis 11:6, if you want to look at that one too. Both the dragon and Yahweh caused floods. The dragon poured out water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. Well, we know all about the flood. I mean, we've got the flood in Noah's time, and then we've also got other mentions of it in Jeremiah 46:7. Who is this rising like the Nile, the rivers whose waters surge? Egypt rises like the Nile, like rivers of those waters surge. I will rise and I will cover the earth. I will destroy the cities and their inhabitants. And he goes on down in verse 10 and says, For the Lord God of hosts holds a sacrifice in the north country by the river Euphrates. You can read the whole thing from like Jeremiah 1 through 10, but it's him doing the floods. That's the last one. I can't believe it. We made it through all that's 40 of them. 40 things that Yahweh matches from Revelation as the dragon.